35% of our industry went out of business at that time.
We keep on getting better, okay? We do. The offerings are better, the reinvestment, the key to this business, in my opinion, is product development.
Every time you see a member, there's a moment of truth.
We educated ourselves and continue to educate ourselves. That builds sustainability and longevity in this fitness industry.
Bob Thomas, welcome to L.I.F.S. I'm thinking of how best to give you an introduction. You spent many years at Lifetime.
Yep.
I know that, but I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I actually, my career started 44 years ago in the fitness industry. I started with Club Corp right out of college. They recruited me and sent me to Houston to do a M&A right out of the gate. And so I did that, and it did very, very well. But I got to meet the original founders of the fitness industry. They had owned the clubs. Bob Del Monte, Ray Wilson, Ray Stern. They were all part of this whole pack with Joe Weider and the whole, genesis of the 50s and 40s.
I've learned about that.
Yeah. So I got lucky that they kind of became my mentors after that. And so I worked with Club Corp moved me up to Dallas in 1980. I don't want to age myself, but 1981. I was there down in Houston for 2 years. They brought me to the corporate office, and then I headed up the whole fitness division for Club Corp until 1988. In 1988, and then I decided to go on my own and be an entrepreneur, and started this reoccurring revenue business, which at the time, there were so many gyms going out of business back then. And I seen that they weren't doing, especially the Gold's gyms and the powerhouses and the world gyms, they weren't doing reoccurring revenue. They had no clue on how to do it. So they were working out of a 5x7 box and a 3x5 card and selling a 1 day pass, a 1 week pass. And, in the country club business, and we had morphed into a fitness business division as well, and that's the division I kind of more gravitated and ran that side of the business. But they kind of coached me and saying they don't do the business you do. They don't know reoccurring revenue. So I put together a business plan and a pitch deck and a marketing deck and a pro forma, and I presented my wife at the time first and said, hey, I'm thinking about moving to Santa Monica, where fitness started, and I think that's where we started, and started, knocking on some doors and, kind of educate them on the recurring revenue and model. And she thought I was out of my mind because I was, and so I ended up convincing her after about 90 days and ended up moving to Santa Monica. And once I moved there, I started knocking on doors, and I started presenting to all these gym owners, and they had no clue what I was talking about. It was like, what the heck? You're going to put out 300 lead bowls. You're going to get 1,500 leads a week. Well, we already tried the lead bowls. They don't work. And, you're going to have girls calling and making appointments. And so we had a real solid system. And finally, I found one. You know where Victorville, California is?
Yes.
So from LA, that. So it's about 60 miles. It took me there to get my first client.
Wow.
Yeah, and 100 no's, and almost a year worth of knocking on doors and trying to present. And this couple had just bought this racquetball club, and they were going to convert it to a fitness club. And that's where it all started. We started doing the marketing for them. And fortunately, after about 2 weeks, the competitor went out of business, and we ended up selling about 2,000 memberships over 90 days. And then it became a referral business after that. So we went right up 99 and all the beach areas. We did all the South Bay and all the way to San Diego, up to San Francisco. And once I got up to San Francisco, I fell in love with San Francisco. And I had known the founders of Bally's. We had become friends over years, and they had just one of the gentlemen, the CFO, had retired, and we decided to develop a M&A company. So we just started buying and acquiring clubs over the next 4 or 5 years, and then Marc had gotten his private equity money, and we ended up selling our company to him. And then,
because he told us this morning, he was kind of fairly early on this reoccurring.
He was number one.
Right.
Yeah, he was, we were competitors. So in the Bay Area, and but he was a formidable opponent. And so when he had got his first equity money, we'd sold to him. And then they put me on a new 2-year non-compete clause. So my original partners were the original founders of Bally's, CFO and a managing member, which was Sonny Reeser. So they had bought Bahram's original company, US Women Fitness. So I had never heard of Bahram.
Yeah.
I was working
which is in Colorado, right?
Huh?
Which is in
Colorado, Minnesota, Arizona. And so his first seed money that Brom got was in Detroit. So I go back to Detroit because I've got 2 years and trying to figure out what my next move was. And I'm in Powerhouse. So the brothers that started Powerhouse Gym, Will and Norm, we're childhood friends. We knew each other, grew up together. I helped them. I helped the brothers open several of their clubs with my marketing company, got them into the recurring revenue model. And then I was in their Troy location, and first club that Lifetime Fitness did outside of Minneapolis was Troy. And they had bought Novi and the property in Novi and Shelby Township. So we're in 24 Hour Fitness's headquarters down in Carlsbad. And the guys from 24 Hour Fitness said, well, what are you going to do? What's your next move? I go, I don't know. Have you heard about this Lifetime Fitness coming to Detroit? And I go, no, it's funny you're asking me this. The operator that, I helped do his, set his club up with Norm and Will, brought me this advertorial. And he didn't know it was an advertorial, and talked about this $25 million facility coming to Troy, Michigan, and, pools and, slides and zero depth walking and pools and all that stuff. And he goes, and they're, from the Middle East as well. Yeah. And, they said, do you know this guy? And I couldn't say Brom's name. I said, no, I never heard of the guy, but I can tell you this, if he can do this, then he's going to probably think about selling your clubs. And so now fast forward, we're, now in Carlsbad, and the guys go, hey, have you heard about this Lifetime Fitness? I said, it's funny you're saying this. I just read I know to be an advertorial, an article about this whole Lifetime Fitness company. You know him? And my partners chirped up and said, we know him real well. We bought his first company, UF Swim and Fitness. Wow. And so they kind of gave me the introduction to Brom. And so me and Brom got together, and he came to Detroit. We spent the day together. And then 2 weeks later, he flew me to Minnesota and met Mike Brown, Afonda, his whole team. And we got together and decided that we would work together. And that's how I got with Brom.
Wow. And how long were you at Lifetime for?
From 98 to 2009.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had a good run. Yeah.
What an incredible journey.
Yeah. Very
Because you were there in the early days. I mean, you were really in the crucible of the industry forming. And fast forward to now. Yeah. I want to bring us all the way to today. Yeah. And we were just outside before we hit record talking about peptides and a clinic that you're forming within UFC. You're partnering again with Mark Mastrov. We've been talking about this on the podcast a lot, that clubs have to really view themselves as being more like clinics in some sense, not actual clinics, but the members are going to need, want, are looking for that type of service coming in. So here's the thing, though, you wouldn't think of it coming from a UFC. You might think that Lifetime would have, and they have something with Miura, with Jeff, that what Jeff created. Yeah. You think an Equinox would want to do that, but here we go. Yeah. UFC opening up a clinic within the clubs. Tell us a bit about that origin story.
Yeah, so the thing what we've been doing is I've been working with, I started NextGen 4 years ago. I got introduced to the GLP-1 drug right when it got FDA approved, like July of 21. And I didn't like the weight loss business. I was totally against it. It was amphetamine driven, it ruined the cardiac system, it corrupted it. So I really never had a reason to ever get in the weight loss business. And one of my gym partners came to me with this GLP-1. And he knows how it was. He really was trying to get me to get in front of this group that was selling licenses for a territory about this GLP-1. But you had to do a brick and mortar, and it was like a $5 million investment. But I went through to the president. He got me in front of these guys for a presentation. And I kind of got through the science of it. And I said, there might be a business here. And, we were coming out, we were still in COVID. We got decimated into COVID. 35% of our industry went out of business at that time. And I really looked at this not a B2C business. I looked at this as a B2B business and a B2C business. Once I got through the science, and I really got to understand that, it didn't corrupt the cardiac system, that there was many, and I really did a lot of research. And I have a team. We did a lot of org development for private equity firms when I left Lifetime Fitness. And really did a lot of research. I had a team that we just dove into what GLP-1 was and how it really affected and what were the benefits really of it in the in the diabetic world. But there wasn't a lot of white papers out there, but there was enough for us to get involved and to really understand it. And my team presented it. I gave them 90 days to present to me, and 90 days later they presented to me, and I really looked at it saying, all right, this is really a personal trainer model. We're coming out of COVID. We've lost 50% of our trainers. I mean, a whole career path that really put a big gap in us, and then 35 to 40% of our revenue was going to be lost in it. So I really looked at this, building technology that can do it. And I built this based on a rev share with gyms. And I built a multi-tenant CRM. So that was the first step in really engaging. So we built that first. And I wasn't going to go to the B2C market, but I had to get my proof of concept before I was going to introduce to the gym world, because I know all the CEOs, I know the private equity firms. And unless you have it, a proof of concept, they're going to look at you and go, just like took me a year to get to the first gym that I got to convince a operator to trust that we were doing the right thing on the recurring revenue. And so we took and we did Facebook, and we did Instagram, and we did TikTok, and we did all the videos. So we took a whole year to really get the proof of concept down. And it just so happened, it wasn't by design. We have a internal media team too. And so what I did is I had my media team, say, all right, let's do this. Let's announce I'm doing this GLP-1 business. So we're launching NextGen MD 360 as a telemedicine platform that we have a multi-tenant CRM that we can take all their data, their members, put them in their own CRM, and then we can transact through that forum. And that's where it started from. And so we launched it, but it was like, we launched on LinkedIn that I was doing the GLP-1 and NextGen was in it. And it just happened, it was like 2 weeks before URSA. And it wasn't designed, it was not even. And so my team came back they didn't know what URSA was. They didn't, I really hadn't talked a lot about the fitness industry to them. And they came back to say, we put this out there and there's a lot of people that want to talk to you about this GLP-1, at URSA, you're going to go? I said, no, we're not ready for it. And so they came back to me like a couple of days later, you might want to do it. There's some guys that you hired 30 years ago, now they're CEOs. They're concerned about, there's some concern amongst these round tables, and that there's GLP-1, and they're really concerned, but they want to talk to you about what you're doing. So I said, all right, let's do a teaser. Let's, put it out there. You can get me appointments. I'll jump on a plane. And now this is, Saturday or Friday of the week before URSA is starting. Yeah, and they put a teaser out there, and we got 22 appointments in less than 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. So I get on a plane to LA. Now this is LA, right? So I fly to LA, and I wasn't expecting what was coming my way. I had no clue. Not that I'm naive, I just wasn't seeing it. Even through all our SWATs, I wasn't looking at the way they were looking at it. And I guess during these Rex roundtables that they were discussing GLP-1, because now they've lost, their 30% of their members. They've lost their training, most of their training. And now they're thinking that, they're going to lose 30% of their members because of this drug. And so that's what I got hit with. Like the first 3 were guys I hired that are now CEOs going, what are you doing here? You're gonna hurt my business. I go, no. Yeah, I go, no. Listen, I really built this for you guys. I said, we need to get the personal training back together. We need to bring this back into the gym. This is really a B2C to B2B business that I built. So I really want to work with you guys as a rev share business. And that's where it started.
Right.
So I hate to give you a 5-minute commercial, which should have been a 30-second commercial, but hopefully I didn't distract you guys too much.
I think as we've talked about a lot on the podcast, and it's not anything new, but it certainly makes a lot of sense for, I guess, the medical world and the health, fitness, and wellness world to have this crossover. And with the GLP-1s, that you can definitely see that's an obvious place to connect. And many people are now considering how to do this. And there's a number of sort of telehealth types of solutions. There's a lot of people that are taking it upon themselves to source different suppliers and sell it in gyms. And so a whole spectrum of different solutions out there. But it certainly seems to make sense that that's the direction that things will go into. There's obviously a lot of positive things that you can talk about, but if I'm a gym owner and I've got a small chain or even a large chain, what are some of the things I need to be concerned about before deciding to embark on partnering or working with someone to bring these into my business?
Yeah. The one thing we've really taken our time, I've crawled, walk, run, making sure we were doing the right thing all the way along. Because, back in the 90s or 80s, when I decided to do recurring revenue, we were facing gyms going out of business all the time. And the bad actors got involved early. So the reason why I really got in, because we serve people, right? That's our home objective in the fitness industry, is to serve people. Yeah. And in the clubs, the integrity we had in our business model was everything's paid. We don't have any debt. We want to make sure that we're a solvent company all the time. And Bram, that's one of the things that me and Bram really had in common, is that when I heard about his integrity and how he ran his businesses prior to my partners buying his company, out of the 500 clubs that my partner had bought, he was the CFO of Bally's. He said Bram's company was the number one company that when they presented their books to him was the most authentic and had the most integrity to it. So that's what really got me and Bram, we had that synergy together. So the same thing as what I'm doing today is I don't mind competition. It is healthy for our industry, but we got to make sure the bad actors aren't doing bad things. The research only, I never got involved in it. It's just, I seen it as, kind of a shortcut that's going to be short-lived. And we took the high road. Everything we do is all compounded. It's all done. We invested in, we have a wholesale license. So Next Gen Scientific, MD Scientific, owns a whole wholesale licensing. So we're able to buy the API. So we're able to, have the whole chain of custody of all
what's API and compounding, just for?
Yeah, active pharmaceutical ingredient.
Okay.
So that's the actual ingredients that actually make the GLP-1 or the peptides. So we actually import it. We make sure it goes to our pharmacies. Our pharmacy partners are here tonight. They're all, tested, COA'd. Everything is all, documented. So everything we know that's going out is all tested, and the end product, the finished product, is delivered in a certified way. What we're really challenging is that the bad actors, we got to make sure they don't get into this. And if you're going to go down that road and take that shortcut of research only, I would just be very careful. Like I said, I'm not going to here to disparage, them as what they're putting out there, but just make sure what you're doing, do your due diligence, that you can actually verify that what you're getting is the real product itself.
Well, we're almost at time, but there's one question which I want to ask you. So we've seen this evolution, as you mentioned, GLP-1, the growth of peptides. You're now going to be opening up a brick and mortar location within a club, which I think is how this is trending. If you were to pick in initial opening, what do you think are the therapies that are research backed that you feel safe and comfortable offering to members?
Yeah, so IV, we can follow that chain of custody too. We know when they're manufactured, and we manufacture it too as well. Peptides, as long as they're compounded in a FDA approved facility and a compounding facility that's FDA approved, right? But just make sure that that's where you're really focusing on. Is that we're doing peptides. We're going to do hormone treatments too as well, and the GLP-1 and IV.
Today's episode of the L.I.F.T.S podcast is sponsored by eGym. eGym delivers smart strength solutions that help gyms and health clubs attract, engage, and retain members while improving health outcomes at scale. From intelligent equipment to AI-powered training programming and corporate wellness via WellPass, eGym is leading the way in smart fitness. Visit egym.com to learn more.
Within those peptides, I know there's a lot of different types, and I'm still learning it. What are the ones that you would sort of think are particularly unique? We know GLP-1s is certainly a miracle drug. What else is out there?
Yeah, so we do all the individual ones. We manufacture all the individual peptides, and then we do blends too. So you're not doing as many shots per day, but you're definitely a recovery. We do a recovery blend, which is TB500 and BP157. And then IFG-LR3, good muscle development. That's a great one too. MOTS-C for sure. Great, another lean muscle tissues. During the process of losing weight, with the semaglutide was probably the toughest one because you lost so much lean muscle tissue. When you got to the tirzepatide, which is double hormone, you're not losing as much lean muscle tissue. Now with Retta, it's the 3. You're not going to lose hardly any lean muscle tissue. But to complement those along the way, and we've built systems and protocols along. Not we, but our physicians and our practitioners. They're the ones that own that real estate. We don't own that real estate, but those would be the ones I would suggest to start. NAD, That's a popular one right now. But I would stick to those. And we have, we have a Fountain of Youth. We have all different ones.
Adam was telling me about, like, he had a great suntan, and he was telling me about this one. So what's that one called?
I'm not giving you that one.
And he's done everything. So one of the things that we, and we'll invite you to come with us as well, but when he's done this build out, we committed to going to the location, actually getting through the therapies. And
so that's why I'm going to get a place in Manhattan Beach for the next 5 months, just to be on site, to follow all the construction, to follow all the the development and the execution of what we're doing with our team. Our team and Adam's team have been working together unbelievable. We've had such a great partnership now, and we've been working with Adam for the last year and a half. So we've already did the first stage we did was our telemedicine platform and our rep share with them, and that's where the confidence level created, because they got hit with probably 5 or 6 different companies, and he was up front with me. Him and Mark said, but we've been working with you guys, and you guys have been absolutely the best to work with. So,
what's the business model like? How interesting would this be for a gym owner that's got a space to do this kind of thing? What are we looking at?
Yeah, so what we've done is with NextGen, we built all the technology. So we built all the technology. So we built the EMR, which is electronic medical records platform. We built a storefront, a digital storefront. So that digital storefront, we give that to them, and it's got everything on there. Then we let them build their own landing page, and then the landing page, they can start doing digital right away. And with the CRM that we built, we take their current members and their ex-members, and we start transacting with them right away. So we have like a 6-month pre-sale through digital, and then once we get that membership base up to engagement, then we deploy the construction, and we'll start doing the construction and actually launching the clinics themselves. But we have all the technology to support it.
Well, thanks so much, Bob. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Well, Sal Pellegrino needs no introduction. I don't think he needs an introduction. Industry OG. I mean, Sal, I've been learning so much from you. And welcome to L.I.F.T.S. Have we had you on before? I thought we did.
We did.
Yes,
yeah.
we did.
We were just talking about it off camera. It was at the World Gym event, and Sal was just offered the role at FISA, I believe.
Yeah. And your podcast was amazing.
Thank you.
I was so impressed. I said, "Who is this guy? He's really good."
It wasn't with me though.
It was primo.
Primo.
Yeah,
So I don't know if it doesn't count. But
Probably
count.
doesn't count. No.
Does it count? I think so. This is the first. Let's just call this the first. Well, we're here at the Coach360 event, which is just tremendous. I mean, I feel like it's a party outside. We'll make it a party in here.
Yeah.
And day one of HFA, you're just so knowledgeable in the industry. Would just love to get your thoughts. What have you seen different?
Yeah. Well, this is, I believe, event 38 for me. I've done this 38 times. Wow. And my first event was 86 or 87. So I know I missed 1 or 2. And I just think it's such an important part of anyone that's in health and fitness. I think this has to be a mainstay in terms of coming. I love how it takes a life of its own. Yesterday everyone comes in, a reception or two, a dinner, and that just starts the flow of ideas and then the reconnection with people you haven't seen in a year or sooner. So that, to me, is what I love, the camaraderie of this, the reconnection. 2 observations I had. I thought there was just great activity. Being a vendor for 37 years, that was a very busy trade show floor today. I tried to get to people numerous times, and they were always with customers. And I said, hey, they'd rather be selling than talking to me, right? So that was good. So it was great activity. And then the trade show, the number of booths, I don't know what the number was in comparison to the last couple of years, but to me, I thought this was the best event that I've seen since 2019.
Yes.
Okay, so from a vendor perspective, and then we had a lot of consolidation. We got strength continues to come, right? More and more strength providers. So that, to me, I noticed. Pilates booming, right? I mean, I don't know how many Pilates providers there are now, but there was a lot
and
of
equipment
those.
vendors partnering up with Pilates companies, and seeing it in their booth.
Yeah, and so that space got a lot of attention, and the competitors came out rather quickly, and so I think that's interesting. I love the international feel of this. so many people from from Europe that are here, and obviously, the Australia and New Zealand,
South America,
and that's really fun for me to see that. There was a couple of unique pieces that I saw that I kind of liked. I thought Fitbench did a cool thing. I don't know if you saw it. They had this little tripod kind of centerpiece with the fit benches around it, and I thought it was a great looking piece. And that was new. So I kind of like that. And then the amount of money that people are spending in these booths blows my mind.
It goes up every year.
Oh my gosh. I sit there and, between Matrix, between Technogym, between Life, between Precor, I mean, these guys are spending some money. But then the people that were smaller providers are now up at level 2 now. And now they're spending $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, So I think the industry is pretty darn healthy, so I think those are just some quick observations that I made today.
So 38 years, 38, so HFA. You've clearly seen a lot of trends come and go. So my guess is 38 years ago, what were we looking at? Like treadmills just coming on board? What, give us...
Yeah. All right. So and from a cardio standpoint, great question.
When you were first hanging out at the show, what were the things that were relatively new back then?
Yeah. So cardio was just getting going, right? And Life Cycle came out, obviously, so that was good. And then Stairmaster came out, and I was one of the earlier employees with Stairmaster, so that was great. And then Star Trek came out with the treadmill, and that was cool. Then Life Fitness did a treadmill, and then Quentin was the big dog with treadmills back then. And then Universal Gym was there, and so that's a company that's long gone. And then obviously Nautilus was big. Then you had Paramount, and you had some strength companies that were cool, that were battling it out, and then Cybex came on. That was a big competitor for Nautilus. So it was really a handful of people, and there was a lot of independent providers, and then some consolidation started happening. Okay, where Life Fitness would buy a strength company, and then
Hammer Strength.
And then this grouping of picking up hot categories, to grow their business. And everyone wanted to be a full product company, a full provider, so they could fulfill bid requests and things like that. So that was interesting. So the other thing that's very interesting, I'm going back in the 80s now, strength was big, cardio was just coming on. So it was all about selectorized strength. And then here we are, 38 years later.
That's what I was wondering.
And so to me, it's really fun to come back to strength, but what's really cool is the amount of women, the interest in females, strength training. And the young girls, the Gen Zers, they're training hard.
They are.
They're training really hard, right? And so when I see all the different posts on social of how many half racks that the gyms are offering now, and then the glute zones, and then then recovery coming on. So, but it's everything is, comes around again, right? And so that strength, it's really fun for me to see. And then belt squats, they were big years ago, and they disappeared. Yeah. And then now they're super big, popular now.
I don't know if you saw the Life Fitness brought back this old school squat machine. Did you see that?
Yes.
And I was talking to them, it was out of production for 28 years.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
But there's a reason it's like as high as a skyscraper. It's not the sort of thing you...
No, how do you get on it? I was looking at, how do you get on that?
Can you imagine the union hours and assembling that sucker? That's a pretty big invoice.
So I was going to say, so you were talking about some of the product and product categories going back in the 80s. One of the things I was interested in, because now we're strength back in late 80s, strength back today. What are the things that you've seen that, whether it's behaviors, mentioned consolidation from lots of small companies, and then Life Fitness, for example, buying up other ones. What are some of the patterns or the predictable things that have happened through those sort of 30 to 40 years that are worth noticing now, that are likely to go on and happen in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, would you say?
Right. Oh, God, it's a great question. I got to think that through a little bit. We keep on getting better. Okay? We do. The offerings are better. The reinvestment, the key to this business, in my opinion, is product development. Okay? If you have to always have something new as a provider, whether you design it yourself or whether you acquire it. Okay, so that's one thing that I see, not that the big guys get bigger, but I like how the larger companies have changed order a little bit, you know? So, because L.I.F.T.S was the big dog for 30 years, you know, and then Techno came in, they were big in Europe, and then the Matrix has come on, and they've just, you know, they're the largest company. By far, yeah. And so that's kind of interesting. And then what do you see that's consistent with them? Product development. They did, you know, like I said, Matrix, one thing I respect greatly about them, if something comes out, they're quick to market, you know, versus paralysis by analysis,
they have shortened development cycles.
Yes.
And they can respond to the market quickly or partner with the right people if they can't develop something on their own.
And so that I see that responsiveness to trends, I think is pretty interesting. And then, you know, you have a bunch of these niche players, like, you know, like the Abs company. I just love watching these guys because they had one product.
That's right.
Right? And then all of a sudden they've done the little ab zone, and then they've done the little glute zone. And so, you know, so to me, that's pretty fascinating.
And there's still innovation that's happening.
Oh yeah.
You know, so at HFA this year, for the first time, they've had the Innovation Alley, and I don't know if you had a chance to go see that, but there are strength products. There's one that is called the Corbell. I think they renamed it, but all it is a dumbbell that's designed to fit between your legs, and you could do planks. Just innovation that you wouldn't otherwise think about. A simple product, but it's rooted in strength, and I think we're going to continue to see that happen.
Yeah. No, I mean, being that I'm like the oldest vendor in the room, right? I'm fascinating with the intellect and the creativity of the next generation, you know? Yeah. And you know, you guys are great guys, right? And Mo, I'm the vice president of the Mo fan club, right? And I just think that people are thinking so differently, and they're adapting to the changes, and then they're understanding of the different generations too. You know, because I still think it's you know, we're in a great spot, and I think the industry is really healthy. Everyone I've talked to from a buyer's perspective, the club operators,
it's getting bigger.
Oh, it's not stopping. You know, I was talking to one of my customers today that comes to a FISA event, and we're going to do 28 locations this year. How do you do 28 locations
in 1 year?
Where do you get the money? How do you hire 28 managers?
How do you manage to build out?
How do you do the build out? How do you buy all the equipment? You know, it's unbelievable. So when you think about that, I mean, our industry is it's a great industry. It's
and I think more people coming in. We had Mark Mastrov earlier today, and he was talking about the growth of just high school gym members joining early and then staying with the brand. And I think we're opening up the aperture of who can be who could be in.
Yeah.
Matthew, any final thoughts?
No, I was just going to say, one of the questions I was interested in is that you talked about a lot of these independent manufacturers. Like, has there always been, my guess is you always had a number of larger players like the Quintons and the Stairmasters throughout the years, but has there always been the amount of a lot of these smaller independents, like you mentioned, the Abs company and others out there, or is it something that we're just now seeing as there's a lot more fragmentation of different types of training, different types of users? What are your views on that?
Well, you know, the best part of Ursa HFA for me historically has been go to the outlying booth areas, because you know, I was employee 8 or 9 at Stairmaster,
right?
And we were a little booth with two booths in the back row, you know. And what is that, crazy stair climber? People are never going to buy that, right? So I love when people have a great idea, and sometimes the timing is off. So I remember when Nautilus had, you know, they came out with a recumbent bike. It was an air bike, fan resistance. It was just too soon. It was called I believe it was called the Cyclone. And I got on it and I went, this is great, right? And it just never went anywhere. 2 or 3 years later, Augie with L.I.F.T.S comes out with the recumbent bike, and they killed it, right? They had an LED, the other one was an old LCD screen. You know, so, you know, I think those little innovations, and then other people are watching saying, oh my God, it's a great little product. You know, and so those are 2 examples that those outliers, you know, spend the time looking at the little guys, not just the big guys, because, you know, 1 out of 6 is going to make it. You know what I mean? So
in other words, treat it like when you shop at the grocery store. Stick to the outside of the store. It's
healthier.
It's healthier. It's where all the good stuff is.
It's all
Away from the
creative.
processed stuff in the middle.
Yeah, that's so funny. That's really a good analogy. No, I just, and then the cosmetic design of things, and the technology on the consoles, and I just love how much, and then you're getting this, the synergy, like Matrix is now doing something with Sika, and then just, so you see this vendor to vendor cohesion. And I really like that a lot, because to me, like at FISA events, the vendors come to meet with buyers. What I'm surprised about is the synergy between vendor to vendor. And I think that's how some of these unique partnerships start. So I'm fascinated by that. That's something that's new. In the old days, I worked for L.I.F.T.S. You worked for Stairmaster. We were not enemies, but we didn't.
I think
we said hi. That's it.
Well, it's because of what you said earlier. It's the speed of product development that you have to partner sometimes, right? If you want to get to market quickly. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This is your first time with me on, so I'm going to call this our first official time having you on.
This is good. I mean, I'm honored to be with both of you. I follow you guys all the time, and you guys are doing such a good service for the industry. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And honored to be your friends and honored to be here today.
Thank you, Sal.
We appreciate you, Sal.
Cheers, man.
Pamela, welcome to L.I.F.T.S.
Thank you.
It's great to be here. We're in an awesome venue. Why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. So my name's Pamela J. Brown, but you can call me Pam. I am the head of People and Culture, the Executive Vice President and Head of People and Culture for Crunch Fitness.
And you've been telling us a nice little story about soul.
Yes.
Come on, explain that to us, because it brought in some of the people that I'd been working at Crunch when we came to the USA, probably 2010 or 11. We're also still with the organization on many of them. So give us a little bit of an overview of Soul.
Absolutely. So you were talking to me about Marc Santamaria, and Marc leads group fitness for our signature gyms. And Soul, which Marc had a very big part in creating, is really how we talk about our culture. So our culture has Soul, and Soul is also an amazing acronym for Speak It, Own It, Understand It, and Live It.
Okay.
And when you walk into our gyms, I think you feel that soul. And I'm a primary example of that. So when I joined Crunch 3 years ago, I weighed over 200 pounds, and I had not been into a gym in quite a while.
Yeah.
So it took me about a month to go to the gym, but once I went, I was never turning back. So you feel soul the second you walk into the gym. I was lucky enough to walk into Crunch 34th Street, and the music is loud, the vibe is amazing. There are people of all races, sizes, heights, genders, everything. And so everyone can see themselves in the gym and feel belonging. And I also loved the music, but I was still only there to learn the business. So my plan was 1 day a week, until 1 day became 2 days, 2 days became 3 days, and I started to really work out with my trainer. And I would say it wasn't until I went on vacation for a week to a cruise and came back to the gym. And I was new, so not everyone knew I even worked at Crunch. Everyone there, from the people who fix the equipment, to the front desk people, to the sales people, to the trainers, welcomed me back. They were happy to see me. They knew I was on a cruise. They were happy I didn't gain any weight back. And that's when I started to feel the sense of community. And 50 plus pounds later, I reversed my prediabetes. Wow. And I normalized my blood pressure. And so that's Soul.
That is such an incredible story. Crunch is an iconic brand. I've not been in the industry. So you're 3 years in, I'm about 15 years in. Matthew, you've been decades and decades in. But all along, even though we both were not originally in the industry, you heard of Crunch. The logo of Crunch is iconic. And as you get in the industry, you really learn how many iconic people that are in fitness today actually came out of Crunch. Even you look at a lot of the spin instructors in the early days of SoulCycle, a lot of them came out of spinning at Crunch Fitness. Even some instructors that are on Apple Fitness Plus today started at Crunch Fitness. And then we hear about stories like what you just went through. And I think that brings it down to the ground level in that community is important, engagement is important, creating habits is important. What do you think about Crunch, aside from Soul, because that's an internal thing that you do, but what keeps members keep on coming back to Crunch?
I honestly think that it is a combination of the community. And then we have amazing group fitness classes. So some people really love the group fitness classes, and we've always been on the cutting edge. Others work with their trainers. I can't imagine working with a different trainer. And I have an amazing trainer, Sean, at 34th Street, he's a master trainer, and he's been with Crunch for 10 years. And if you sit around either the gym or the office and you ask people how long they've been with Crunch, 3 years in, I'm a baby. Many people have been there for 20 years, 25 years. Marc, who we talked about, 26 years. And he started at Crunch going to group fitness classes, and now he's our vice president of group fitness.
One of the things I was interested in is we had an interview with Mark Mastrov this morning, and Mark was obviously very involved with Crunch as an investor. And I asked him the question, when you get involved or invest in businesses, and he's really been a serial investor in many brands within the fitness industry. And I said to him, what's one of the first things that you do? What's your, have you got a framework or a master strategy that you apply to all of these businesses? And the first thing he said was people. And so as someone who's been involved with Crunch, which I understand is an organization that he'd certainly had his hands involved in to some extent. What do you think, or what would you say as really someone who heads up the people and the culture, do you see that they do that makes them a remarkably successful organization?
So one thing I've heard our president, Shaquan Lewis, say quite a bit is every time you see a member, there's a moment of truth. And I think that I had tried to get myself healthy for many years, and my moment of truth happened working out with my trainer. Sometimes it's the person smiling at you from the front desk. And for me, being in people and culture, every interaction I have with team members and team members have with each other is our moment of truth. Because the member experience is never going to outperform the team member experience.
That's so interesting, because we live in this world of AI. We live in this world where we are glued to our phones. We're in this digital ecosystem. But something that we've talked about a lot is, even as AI progresses and replaces some of the admin tasks that we do, that people connection that you talked about, Pam, is more important than ever. And when I think about the role of a personal trainer, the way I'm envisioning this happen and evolve over the next couple of years, next couple of months, is the simple stuff like the programming, the personalization. AI is going to take care of a lot of that for you, but it's that connection that you talked about with your trainer, Sean, that you can't replicate through AI. So as you, given your people and culture role, how are you thinking about recruitment and hiring? Because I often think that things like empathy and communication and those soft skills are more important than ever. And and your technology skills and your ability to interface with tech is less important.
I absolutely agree. Technology is going to help people do their jobs better, but that connection, that emotional connection, is everything. And so at Crunch, we have career pathways so that personal trainers can either grow to be master trainers and get certifications, and we support people with education. Or if they want to lead people, we can also grow them in that direction. And we actually have a program now called Lead Strong, and it goes over things like emotional connections, emotional intelligence. We have workplace behavior assessments, and it's really leadership training every quarter, plus coaching in between.
What do you do when it comes to keeping that culture with lots of people that are working remotely and on different shifts and in different locations, and also having a different generation of people? You mentioned Marc, that's probably in sort of a little bit older category, and I'm sure you have people that are several decades younger than him working in some of the clubs. And from what I understand, certainly communicating with my children is they communicate very, very differently. Like even if I'm in the same house, my son responds better to a text or a snap than he does for me trying to speak to him. So how do you look at creating that engagement with people when you have distance and also different generations to sort of bring on board?
So part of Lead Strong is going over generational differences. And also we have mentorship. So the benefit of having team members that have been with us for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years is that we have built-in mentors. Sean is actually a great example because he will take the ramping trainers that are newly certified and new to the gym that probably were born with phones in their hands, that aren't necessarily making that eye contact and those personal connections, and he helps them learn how to do that. And Sean's a master trainer. He's not a fitness manager, but he has crunch soul. Yeah. So he makes sure and mentors all of the ramping trainers at 34th Street, and we have a lot of people like him.
One final question. You oversee both corporate and also people for franchises, and it's so important that franchises also understand some of the SOPs that you've created, the culture that you've created. How do you manage and extend culture that you've cultivated, that Crunch has cultivated from a corporate perspective to all the franchisees?
So I directly oversee Crunch-owned gyms, signature gyms, and I'm a close thought partner to our whole franchise network. And a great example would be today, I got to speak about culture at HFA, and 2 hours after my talk, we had Amber Martinez from Gem Brands also on the leadership and culture track. And you might have thought we planned our talks together because they were very similar yet different, and the values clearly were the same, even though she's with a franchisee and I'm representing corporate.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Marc Rodriguez.
Yes, sir.
Second time we first met many years ago with Miguel in what's the place now?
Self-made training facility.
Self-made training.
Yeah.
Where was it? Where were they based though? In
we were actually in Temecula, California, about an
Temecula.
hour north of here, San Diego. So we and I met you not only there, but I also met you at URSA, which is now HFA. But we had talked through a couple people we knew mutually as well. So it's good to see you again.
so Marc, what you've been talking to a lot of people. We're here at the Coach360 event where there's many leaders from the fitness industry, I would say. What are some of the conversations that are top of mind after being here for the last couple of days? Yeah,
one of the things I love about HFA and being at this particular thing, even with Coach360, is the meeting of the minds. You start talking about what the industry is lacking, what we need to pick up on. My forte and what I'm actually passionate about is personal trainers and their businesses, running their businesses, giving them the education they need to run their business, but then also providing them a platform where they can do it. And so being able to talk with people that have been in the industry 20, 30, 40 years, people that have been around the block a while, you get to see what are some common trends, but then you can also see how we can make some solutions. And that is what I love about being in these types of arenas, because you start to really get to grasp people's knowledge and then, saying, okay, how can we make some actionable steps and move it forward?
What have you seen change with personal training over the last couple of years? We talk about this a lot, but you've got the loss of personal trainers during the pandemic.
Yes.
They went out and left and got other careers. Then you've got the change of the consumer post-pandemic, where they're coming in with AI-based programs, following influencers. So the role of the trainer, at least I believe, has evolved over the last 5 years. Yes. And I think it's going to go through a complete transformation in the next 12 months because of AI. And something that I've always talked about is things like the soft skills, empathy, encouragement, kind of holding your client accountable. These are the soft skills now that almost have to be re-emphasized in personal training.
Yes. I love that question, by the way. I smiled when you said it, because it's definitely something that nowadays, yes, post-pandemic, a lot of people went to online training. So obviously embracing technology has been some of the key components. But I'm going to tell you this, and I speak for it because I've seen it all the time, is that the ground level trainers are still not that advanced. They're still trying to find those soft skills and trying to find all of those valuable assets that most of us grew up in, being personal trainers from the start. So the technology is still not going to cater to what they're going to do. It's really about that interpersonal communication and being able to talk to their clients, being able to relate. I think that's the big key component here. The communication problem is the issue, if you ask me.
And a lot of it is because of technology. Because when you look at people that are in their 20s now, coming into personal training because they're passionate about fitness, they have been growing up in a digital world. I mean, Matthew, you talked about messaging your son on Snapchat, right? It's hard for young people today to look at someone in the eye like we're doing and have a conversation and be supportive, because you don't pick up those skills in school. So do you think that the training to become a personal trainer should start including more of that?
100%. It's one of the reasons why my school is very based off of resident. So like actually being in the school, like sitting down in the classroom, attacking the adult learner from the auditory, visual, and kinesthetic way. Online training is great, but it misses a lot of key components, especially with practical application. And I think that's the key thing right now that I'm learning with trainers that are coming in that are getting educated, is that they're having a hard time with that particular aspect. But I think, as we spoke about, or what you just said, as far as DMing or emailing or text messaging and things of that nature, it really has stopped people to be able to articulate their words and speak to somebody and have this kind of conversation. And so I think that is going to get a little harder, if you ask me, for trainers to be able to do that. But then on the consumer side, as you expressed earlier, people are looking for the fast, which in every consumer world, they're looking for the get quick. How's the scheme that's going to get me faster? I don't want to do the work. I want it now. And I think that's going to be the hardest part. I mean, we got the GLP-1s, you got all the things that are coming out now, the peptides and all this stuff that's, has flooded the waves. But the natural exercise, nutrition, sleep recovery, those types of things, it's almost like, I don't want to talk about that. Let's try to get to the faster. And I think the trainers are going to have a hard time trying to explain why the archaic ways is still a great way of training and having great longevity and sustainability.
And will have a bigger impact. I always talk about your number one hack is just improve your sleep.
Yes.
That will have a better impact than any peptides you could do. Let's start there first.
I mean, we could go on and on. This podcast would go on forever, and a lot of people think that we're old or we have archaic ways, and it's like, no, we're talking about things that actually work. Now, I get it that there's advancements, and I'm all for that, right? I mean, I own a software company myself outside of this as well, with CRMs and email marketing and all that good stuff. So I get it. I understand how technology can work, but it shouldn't be your end all be all. You should still have the skill set to be a master of your craft in all aspects, and then be a warrior in business as well. I see a lot of people fold. I think when it comes to trainers, now I didn't express this, but I'll say this. I'm really big on the personal trainers being independent contractors as well. So I think that they need to start branching off on their own and building businesses on their own. I think that it's very important for them to be able to do so, because you're going to get a higher level of trainer who actually takes more passion into their business, because it dictates their money that's coming into their pockets, So I think with that, the mastering your craft and getting away from the Instagram influencers and the things that, people are seeing nowadays is so important. So that's where education comes in.
What do you learn? Because I think you're in a unique position.
Yes, sir.
You obviously had a great relationship with Miguel, and I think he really moved personal training on. He created a great brand. I think he, from my perspective, had an interesting blend between the online trainer and building his brand online using Instagram and social media, and then having some really great practical skills for what went on, almost like what gyms were doing prior to when they came along. Going through and seeing all of those different parts of the industry and looking at where you are now today with your new venture, like what would be your perspective on how all of those elements have come together, and what do you think is, how will you sort of like describe what that model should look like based on the sort of journey that you've been through uniquely?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, first off, when I retired from the military, because I retired from the Marine Corps, I was a veteran that came out into this world, and I didn't know what I was going to do next. And I just so happened that very same month that I retired, found Self-Made Training Facility, and I became an independent contractor personal trainer. So I started running my business. I had no business acumen. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I ended up building it, but I learned from a lot of people. And I realized at this point too, for somebody at that point, I was 38 years old. And I was like, okay, I'm not young, right? I'm still young, but I'm not as young as the young 20s. And I have experience, I have leadership, I have all the things. I've been to combat, done all those things. But how am I gonna build this business? I had no idea. So I had to reach to a lot of the younger people to find out, okay, how do you do it? And then they taught me. And then I was like, okay, well, I just take what they take and take the blueprint and I start, put it, and then I put my own little flair to it. And I think that because of that, it gave me freedom. It gave me the freedom to really dictate how my career is gonna go. And I put a lot of passion into it, and I knew it wasn't the only step. And I think that this is the thing to lead to your question, is that it provides a bigger roadmap, if you ask me, for the trainer if they do start at an independent contractor level. Because they have a career roadmap that's a lot more advanced and a lot more opportunities than they would at, a corporate gym, in just my opinion. I was speaking to a couple of people that were general managers, and I asked them, I say, how much money are you making, if you don't mind me asking? Like about, good, like 8 to 10K, a month. Say 8 to 10K as a general manager. And you've been doing this for how long? 12, 15 years. I'm like, I've got a couple people who 22, 23 years old, been doing this for about 2 years, and they make about $15,000 a month doing personal training, doing exactly what you're doing, by the way. Personal training, running their businesses. No way. Absolutely. And then and what Miguel created with that model, you can't beat it. I mean, if you ask me, I think the biggest hardship with this model, with the business model of having independent contractors like a salon suite within your facility, is the mentorship side. You as a franchisee or an owner, a business owner, or anything like that, you gotta be willing to mentor these young people through business, through education, and also, by the way, through personal. Because a lot of them have not felt the wrath of owning a business, and then something personally happens, and now all of a sudden your business starts to feel the heat, as we've all probably have felt before. And so if you don't know that mentorship or how to mentor, it's going to be pretty hard for you to own a facility that caters to independent contractors.
So are you suggesting that gyms,
yes,
even national chains, should really start embracing personal trainers as independent contractors?
1,000%. They'll get better, and it's my opinion, they'll get better value out of those particular trainers. I was speaking to a gentleman that owns gyms in Australia, and he said, yeah, everybody in Australia is an independent contractor.
And we've seen that shift happen. And for the gyms, though, it does. When you have a great personal trainer who wants to stay as committed members, it actually improves retention as well.
Yes.
It's one of the best retention tools.
Yeah, and the thing is that once they build their business, and this is what a lot of people don't realize, is once a trainer builds their business within those walls, they don't want to leave because they've built their business within that wall. And the consumers are already comfortable coming there as well, because as great as trainers are, the consumer still loves the community of the gym, of the facility, especially if it's a good gym. So why not maximize that? I have trainers that are in my facility that have been with me for 6 years. Like right now, 6 years running their businesses. I have 43 trainers in my facility that have been with me for a year or more. And I have 50 trainers in there right now.
I know a lot of people would say, though, like if you do that, like the trainers will then take them away with them. I think that's, one of the natural concerns. So how would you, I know you've just kind of mentioned it a little bit, but like, going a little bit deeper on that point, like what could the facility owner do to ensure that you're not only getting loyalty from those independent trainers that could basically take a lot of their clients away, and then also getting loyalty from the clients that are coming in to use those trainers?
Well, everybody who's a business owner needs to focus on one thing. There's multiple things, but one special thing, which is culture. Regardless of what business you're in, what industry you're in, as a leader, CEO, any kind of owner, you need to develop culture. So one thing that I've always been steadfast on is discipline and professionalism. And if you maintain discipline and you maintain professionalism, you will thrive. So I am really big, because what I ask of anybody who's under my roof, I do myself. And I think leadership by example and leadership from the front, that's one of those things that you'll see a lot of people, once they get in leadership positions, they kind of back off. But people that see that, if people that see that, they will start to back off, and then the culture starts to diminish. But if you require a high standard and you demand a high standard within your facility, but in a professional way, people will follow that. And the cool part is, as they follow that, they will want to thrive even more. Further, what are you providing them in value? Because regardless in business, right? Just like a trainer, I can put you through a workout any day of the week, right? Oh, come in, train with me, workouts. The consumer's like, okay, how much would you pay for that? $30, $40? But if I say, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and put you through an actual consultation, I'm gonna look at your sleep, I'm gonna look at your stress management, I'm gonna look at your nutrition, I'm gonna look at your workouts, I'm gonna teach you from the actual education behind everything. We're gonna start with a postural assessment because I wanna analyze your posture, see if you have any muscular imbalances. Then we're gonna flow into what the workouts would actually consist of, because I don't wanna put you on anything hard if you're not ready for it. So we don't have to do an overhead squat assessment, right? We can just start with those actual functional things. And then from that point, we're going to map out for longevity of life. I want you to feel education, but enough that if you were to walk away from me, you have the knowledge to be, healthy for life. How's that sound?
Which you've also seen consumers shift towards. I want to go back to your question, Matthew, but in terms of gyms being afraid, the way I look at it is, number one, if trainers are making a good livable wage, and $15,000 a month is a very good livable wage.
Yep.
They feel ownership and accountability for their own success and journey. They're not going to leave, right? Because they have a partner in the club. I think it is where you start gyms, right? Taking 60, 70% and saying, okay, now I'm going to only take 50%. That's a promotion. For a trainer, they've worked hard to cultivate that. They're more incentivized to say, I'd rather go and do this outside of my own and make more money. I want to touch on...
If you don't mind, I don't mean to interrupt you, I apologize, but there's one more thing I want to touch on because I think it's very important. One of the biggest things that I get about an opinion about my facility is how clean it is. Cleanliness is everything. I want to put this out there because if you're a gym owner, put this in your toolbox. There's one place that you should focus on, that's the primary, ladies' bathrooms. If your ladies' bathroom is pristine, clean at all times, you're winning. Because that gives off already, who's the biggest personal training client? It's women.
It's women.
Right? So they got to sit.
You're the second person to mention, not lead specifically, but Mark Mastroff this morning talked about bathrooms as being fundamental to, but on the consumer,
go ahead.
Good point. And we're almost at time here, but one final thought on the consumer side, we've seen more consumers coming in, not just in gyms in general, but it's not about weight loss. It's not about aesthetics. It's about, I want to live better. I want to be there for my kids and grandkids. I don't want to feel pain anymore.
Yes.
I want to be able to sit, work, stand up, walk, and not feel like I've got aches and pains. And it's such a shift for personal trainers and how they think about what their role is.
Yeah. So the question is?
The question is how are you accommodating for that? Because the shift for the longest time has been around weight loss and has been around aesthetics. While those are still byproducts, I think more consumers have focused on, to your point, longevity and feeling good.
Okay, so great question. So the answer is education off the bat, right? So what we promote from the forefront. So one of the things I'm real big on is what's the next thing that you're doing to educate yourself? So I'll go through all my trainers and I say, what's the next thing you're educating yourself on? And they're like, oh, I don't got anything. Good. Let's come to my office and let's sit down. Let's talk about it so we can see what your next thing is going to be. And they're like, oh, yes, I am. And you're an independent contractor. So can I force them? Can I mandate it? Absolutely not. I can't. But if I say, if you want to level up and you want to be the best of the best and your consumers get the best of the best, then you got to educate yourself. So when it comes to longevity of life, when it comes to the wellness piece, when it comes to all those things, you have to educate yourself on the things that the consumers want, because they're going to have a lot of questions and you should be the subject matter expert on those questions. Because once you are, your consumer's never going to leave you. And if they'll embrace you and they're like, oh my God, if I get out of bed with pain, then you should be figuring out how to get rid of that pain, whether through, muscle activation with foam rolling or percussion device therapy or something of that nature, stretching protocols, anything. There's a lot of different ways you can do it without, having to go to the doctor, of course. You don't want to overstep. But at the end of the day, there's many of different things that people can do to relieve that pain. You know, when you talk about pregnant women, you know, like because when people have babies and they come back and they're like, I want to lose this weight, I want to feel healthier for my kid and all those things, you have to know what goes along with post, you know, pregnancy, and you should be doing your homework. So it's really education. I want to leave you with this because this is something that is very important to me. I tell everybody this, especially the younger generation. I have watched and been around this arena. We talked about this earlier. Why do I love being in this type of place? I love the experience, the data, the knowledge that people have. But why are all of you and everybody here, myself, why are we successful? Education. Every last one of us in some facet, some way, we educated ourselves and continue to educate ourselves. That builds sustainability and longevity in this fitness industry. Those that are flash of the pans, you can already see they fizzle out really quick. So for those out there, educate yourself, find the next piece of education and move it forward.
Marc, thank you very much for your time today.
Sir. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much for having me.